Every Viltrumite feared Conquest. The Empire kept him locked away, like a weapon they were too scared to use. So what happens when that man raises Mark, the most powerful half-human ever born? Mark's dad, Nolan Grayson, was born into royalty. His father was Emperor Argal, the original ruler of the Viltrum Empire, which makes Nolan literal Viltrumite royalty, even though he did not know it for most of his life. Nolan was a soldier and a conqueror, sure, but there was always something more going on underneath. He was sent to Earth to weaken the planet for an eventual takeover, but somewhere along the way, he actually fell in love with Debbie. He actually cared about Mark. He spent 18 years living as a human being, and some part of that experience got under his skin in a way he did not expect. That is why the Season 1 finale hit so hard, and that is why he could not finish Mark off on that mountain. Something human had infected him, and he could not get rid of it. Conquest has none of that. The man does not even have a real name. Every other major Viltrumite we meet has a name. Nolan, Thrag, Craig, Anissa, Lucan, Thetis. Conquest just has a title, a function. He is literally named after what he does, which is simply conquer planets and kill everything on them. In the show, he straight up says it himself. The other Viltrumites are scared of him. They avoid him. They think he is unstable, and they are completely right. The guy is around 5,000 years old. He survived the Scourge virus that wiped out nearly every Viltrumite in existence. He lost his arm and his eye fighting Ragnars when he was weakened, and through all of it, he just kept going because he enjoys violence. He loves it. So imagine that guy getting the Earth assignment. The Viltrum Empire's strategy after the Scourge virus was different from what they used to do. They used to just show up and overwhelm planets with sheer numbers and power. But with their population down to roughly 50 survivors, they had to be smarter about it. The new plan was infiltration. Send a Viltrumite to a planet, have them embed themselves in the society, become a trusted figure, weaken the planet's defenses from the inside, and then when the time is right, the Empire swoops in. That is exactly what Nolan did. He showed up on Earth, created the identity of Nolan Grayson, became Omni-Man, the beloved superhero, married a human woman, had a half-Viltrumite son, and played the long game for nearly 2 decades. Could Conquest do any of that? Honestly, I think this is where the whole scenario gets really interesting, because on one hand, Conquest is clearly intelligent. He has thousands of years of experience. He is tactically gifted and psychologically manipulative. He knows how to read people and exploit their emotions. We see this in his fight with Mark, where he deliberately targets Eve and Oliver because hurting them will break Mark emotionally. That is not the behavior of a mindless brute. That is calculated cruelty. But intelligence and the ability to maintain a cover identity for 18 years are two completely different things. Nolan pulled it off because there was a part of him that was open to the human experience. He wrote books, he made friends with Art Rosebaum, he had dinner with his family. He coached Mark through getting his powers. There were moments that were real for him, even if the mission was always lurking underneath. Conquest does not have that capacity. He is described as psychologically unstable by his own people. The Viltrumites, who are an entire civilization built around violence and domination, look at Conquest and go, yeah, that guy is too much. That should tell you everything. So here is how I think it plays out. Conquest arrives on Earth, probably sometime in the 1980s or early 2000s, just like Nolan did. He creates a human identity. He becomes a superhero. And for maybe the first few years, things look roughly similar on the surface. He is powerful enough to handle any Earth-level threat without breaking a sweat. So he builds a reputation just like Omni-Man did. But the collateral damage would be worse. The villains would not survive their encounters with him. Where Nolan would defeat a threat and move on, in Conquest would defeat a threat and keep going. Cecil Stedman and the GDA would be on edge from day one, because Cecil's entire thing is that he watches everything and trusts nobody. Cecil was suspicious of Nolan, and Nolan was actually trying to blend in. Conquest would set off every alarm Cecil has. Now the big question, does Conquest marry Debbie? Does Mark even exist in this scenario? I think the answer has to be yes for the what if to work, but the dynamic would be completely different. Nolan and Debbie had a real relationship. It was built on a lie, sure, but there was genuine affection there. Nolan saved Debbie's life and fell for her. They built a home together. They had inside jokes and date nights and all the normal stuff that makes a marriage feel real. Conquest marrying a human would be transactional. It would be part of the cover and nothing more. He views humans the same way all Viltrumites do, as inferior beings. But unlike Nolan, he would never develop any attachment to one. Debbie in this timeline would be living with a man who sees her as furniture. She would feel something wrong every single day of her life. And she might not even survive the marriage because Conquest's temper and instability would be a constant threat. One bad day, one moment where Debbie says the wrong thing, and Conquest might not have the restraint to hold back. Nolan had that restraint. Even at his worst, even when he called Debbie a pet and nearly killed Mark, there was a leash on his violence when it came to his family. Conquest does not have a leash, but let us say Debbie survives and Mark is born. Half Viltrumite, half human, just like in the original story. Mark gets his powers around 17, just like before. What happens next? This is where it gets dark. Nolan trained Mark with a mixture of fatherly pride and hidden agenda. He wanted Mark to be strong, because a strong Mark was useful to the Viltrumite mission, but he also just wanted his son to succeed. Nolan was tough, but he was present. He showed up. He cared, even if caring was inconvenient for the mission. Conquest training Mark would be a nightmare. Remember what Viltrumite parenting actually looks like. In Season 4, we see flashbacks of Nolan's own coming-of-age ceremony, where his parents basically beat the crap out of him, and his mother tried to kill him. His father held back, but the standard Viltrumite approach to raising children is essentially trial by combat. Now imagine that filtered through Conquest's personality. He would not hold back. He would not encourage Mark or celebrate his victories. He would push Mark to the breaking point every single session. Every training exercise would be a fight for survival. Mark would grow up terrified of his own father. And here's the thing. Mark might actually end up physically stronger faster in this timeline, because extreme pressure can accelerate Viltrumite development. Viltrumites get stronger through combat and age. A Mark who has been getting brutalized by Conquest since childhood would have his survival instincts sharpened to a razor edge. The Mark Grayson we know and love became a hero because Debbie raised him right. That is stated multiple times in the series. His moral compass, his compassion, his refusal to give up on people, all of that comes from his mom. Nolan was distant, but he was not actively destructive to Mark's development. In the Conquest scenario, Mark would still have Debbie's influence, but it would be constantly undermined by a father who embodies everything horrible about Viltrumite culture, with none of the softness that Nolan accidentally developed. Mark would be a different person. He might still become a hero, because Debbie's impact is that strong, but he would be angrier, more volatile, quicker to resort to violence. Basically, he would be closer to those alternate timeline evil Marks we see in the multiverse episodes, the ones where Nolan's influence won out over Debbie's. Now here's the really interesting part, the reveal. In the original story, the Season 1 finale works because it is a betrayal. Mark trusted Nolan. He loved his dad. He had no reason to suspect anything. So when Nolan kills the Guardians of the Globe and tells Mark what he's really up to, it destroys everything Mark knows. In the Conquest timeline, Mark would already know something is deeply wrong with his father. He might not know the specifics of the Viltrumite mission, but he would know his dad is dangerous. So the reveal would not be a shock, it would be a confirmation. And here's where the Conquest timeline might actually produce a worse outcome for the Viltrumite Empire. When Nolan revealed himself, he almost won. He almost convinced Mark to join him. There was that moment on the mountaintop where Mark wavered because he loved his dad, and some part of him wanted to believe there was a path where they could be a family again. Conquest would never get that moment. Mark would fight from the first second, and he would fight with everything he has, because there is no love to exploit. There is no hesitation. Conquest might be stronger than Nolan in raw power, but he would be fighting a son who has zero emotional attachment to him, which means zero leverage. And Conquest's biggest weakness, the thing that got him killed in the comics and the show, is that he plays with his food. He drags fights out because he enjoys the violence, against a Mark who has been traumatized by that exact behavior his entire life, who has been studying his father's patterns for 17 years and knows exactly how he fights. That's a dangerous mistake. I think Conquest's father Mark kills him faster than our Mark did. Our Mark needed 2 fights with Conquest and a huge emotional trigger to finally put him down. A Mark raised by Conquest would have been sharpening that knife his entire life. but the collateral damage to Earth would be so much worse. Nolan spent 18 years as a mostly benevolent protector. He saved lives, he fought villains, he did real good even if it was all part of a cover. In the Conquest timeline, Earth's greatest hero would have been leaving a trail of bodies and destroyed cities from day one. The Guardians of the Globe might have tried to confront him years before any official reveal. Cecil might have moved against him much earlier. The whole power structure of Earth's superhero community would be different because everyone would be terrified of their supposed greatest champion. The Viltrumite War would play out differently too. In the original timeline, Conquest serves as a villain, specifically because he is an outsider, a weapon sent by the Empire to check on Mark's progress. But if Conquest was already on Earth as the embedded agent, someone else would be sent to check on him, probably someone like Anissa or Lucan, and they would arrive to find absolute chaos, because there is no way Conquest maintained his cover for 18 years. The Empire would know the Earth mission has gone sideways, long before the war even starts. Thrag would handle this situation very differently as well. In the main timeline, Thrag has a grudging respect for Nolan because Nolan is competent and strategic, even if he turned traitor. Thrag views Conquest as a useful attack dog, but nothing more. If Conquest was the one who went rogue or failed the mission, Thrag would not waste time with second chances. He would just kill him and move on. And here is maybe the wildest part, Mark's bloodline. In the main timeline, the revelation that Nolan is the son of Emperor Argyll makes Mark the heir to the Viltrumite Empire. That royal blood is what ultimately leads to the Viltrumites bowing to Nolan instead of Thrag. If Conquest is Mark's father instead, none of that happens. Conquest has no royal blood. He is just a soldier, an incredibly powerful one, but he has no political claim to anything. Mark would still be half Viltrumite, but he would have no special status within the Empire. The endgame of the comics, where Nolan becomes Emperor, simply cannot happen, which means the universe is probably in much bigger trouble. Without Nolan's bloodline as a rallying point, without Mark's royal heritage as a political tool, the war against Thrag becomes a slugfest with no diplomatic off-ramp. More people die, more planets burn. The coalition of planets has fewer options, and Mark, this angrier, more traumatized, Conquest-raised version of Mark, would have to find a completely different way to end the conflict. Maybe he does. Maybe the rage and survival instinct that Conquest beat into him is exactly what is needed to take Thrag down, without any of the political games. But it would cost him everything human about himself to do it. Mark Grayson is invincible, because Debbie Grayson raised him, and Nolan Grayson, for all his many catastrophic failures as a person and a father, left just enough room for that to happen. Swap Nolan for Conquest, and that room disappears. And without it, the kid who once said he could see the future where Conquest does not live to see tomorrow, that kid might never exist at all.